For our tutorial today, we're going to talk about a 1/4 inch seam. That's one of the very most important parts of making a quilt, is to have a good 1/4 inch seam. If you don't, nothing will work out and you'll just get frustrated. So we're going to show you a couple of things on how to figure out where your good 1/4 inch is on your machine. You can buy a foot that's a 1/4 inch foot, so that the edge of the presser foot is 1/4 inch from where your needle is. On my machine, the needle moves, and right here is where it normally is when I'm sewing, and if I do it one click over, then the edge of my presser foot is a 1/4 inch. And I found that out by just playing with it and figuring it out. If you want to figure it out, you can put your ruler, here's the 1/4 inch line on your ruler, and you can put that under your presser foot and just put your needle down right on the 1/4 inch line, and then put a piece of tape along here on the edge of your ruler, and then you can follow the tape, because I don't have a line here on my machine, and if I couldn't move my needle, that's probably what I would have to do, is put some tape right here, then I'd know where my 1/4 inch was. When you're sewing, when you're quilting, your stitch length is different. If you're sewing clothes or just regular stuff, your stitch length is about 8 stitches per inch. When you're quilting, you should have 12 stitches per inch, and how you figure that out is you just sew a little bit, you mark off an inch, and then you count your stitches. And so we can move our stitch length right here on my machine. Make it a little bit smaller than how we do normally. Now, I have cut 2 strips of fabric like we showed you last week from selvage to selvage, and I'm just going to cut those in half, and they're cut 2 inches wide. You're going to need 4 strips that are 2 inches wide. Okay, I'm going to sew 2 of these strips together, and where I've got my needle arranged, the edge of my presser foot is a good 1/4 inch, so I'm just going to keep the edge of my fabric along there. When you're sewing these together, if you have strips that are longer than maybe 15 or 18 inches, it's good to stagger the way your seams go. So I would sew this seam this way, in this direction, and then when I get to the next strip, I would sew it from this side, from the top here. Okay, then I will sew the next one. I sewed this one in this direction, and then I will sew the next strip on from this side, and then just alternate the directions. This one here is finished, and I have all 4 strips sewn together, and I have it pressed, and now I'm going to measure it. And the strips were cut 2 inches, so this should measure 6.5 inches from here to here. When I have my students do this, they usually are too small, because their seams are a little bit too big. This ruler is broken, but we'll start right here on the 10 inch, and look, it goes right to the 16.5, so that is exactly 6.5 inches. So that means I have a good 1/4 inch seam. Another way you can check for a 1/4 inch seam is just to, after you've done your seam, is to measure it and put the edge right here, and it looks like it's a little shy, but it's better to be a little shy than to be right on or too big, because when you press it back, it does take just a hair, a thread or two, and so a little shy of a 1/4 inch works perfect, because like I say, this measured exactly 6.5 inches. Now I'm going to show you a different way to check it for your 1/4 inch seam. Now I've got 2 pieces cut here, and it doesn't matter how big they are, as long as they're about the same length. And then I have a 1 inch piece that's about the same length. I'm going to sew this 1 inch piece in between these 2. This one is actually just opposite of this one, but I sewed it the same way, and then I pressed the seams so that the seams match. The raw edges meet. If they overlap, your seams are too big. If they don't quite meet, your seams are not quite big enough. This is a great way to test and see if you have a good 1/4 inch. 1/4 inch seams are one of the most vital parts of being a successful quilter and having everything turn out right. It will save you so much headache if you just test your fabric and your machine and make sure that you have a good 1/4 inch before you start.